Okay, good morning. My name is Jeff White and I will be your trainer today. We are going to be doing Flexmls 101. So how this class is going to work is the first hour we will be covering the dashboard and then we'll do a bit of listing maintenance. And then the second hour we will be doing the quick launch bar and all the ways you can search through it. And then in the third hour we will be doing more searching, like things how to do a map search, a quick search, that kind of thing. We might go a little bit over 3 hours depending on the number of questions we have, but let's begin. Okay, so the first thing that I like to cover when I do a Flexmls 101 class is the dashboard, because when you first log into Flexmls, that is what you see. So that is what we are currently looking at. We are looking at the dashboard. Now in the upper left corner, you will see what says a home button and a down arrow or chevron. And whenever you see this down arrow or chevron, it means that there are more options. So when I click on this, I see MLS and I have one called My Hot Sheets. That's a custom one that I created the last time I taught this class. So we'll actually do that again. But if you wanted to go to say like MLS, you'll notice there's going to be different gadgets that are available. That's what these things are called. These rectangular shapes are called gadgets. But your default one should be home, so that is what we are going to be working on. Now, the purpose of the first hour of the class is going to be seeing all the different things that we can do with the dashboard. So we're going to be focusing on customizing the dashboard. Now, the first gadget is called the contacts gadget. And I want to point out, while you're inside of Flexmls, always pay attention to your cursor behavior, your mouse behavior right here, or the hover text that you may see. Now your default mouse behavior is this arrow. But if I were to hover over something like the contacts gadget, you'll see that it says drag to rearrange the gadgets. So the 4 directionals will let you to change the order of things. If I hover over the contacts, you'll notice now that I have an index finger and we have help text that says click here to go to contacts. So when you see that pointy index finger, that tells you you can click on something, and I will refer to this throughout the class. Now, what's really cool thing about these gadgets is the header, the name of the gadget, is actually a shortcut to go into that functionality. What I mean is we're looking at the contacts gadget right here, but that is just a window into contact management. So if I were to click on contacts, it'll bring me into contact management right there. Now, if I want to return back to my default dashboard, all I have to do is click on Flexmls right here. So to customize these individual gadgets, it's pretty simple. I'm going to go to the 3 dots in the upper right corner of a gadget, and what I'm looking for is settings. So I'm going to click on settings. Now, when I do that, I see the page has changed and it says show columns, and certain things are blue. Whenever you see a table like this or a list that you can select things, it'll allow you to select multiple things. So I'm going to hold on Control, or if I have a Mac, Command, and I'm going to click on the things that I'm interested in and remove the things that I'm not interested in. So I've decided to do these 4, and I'm going to click on Save. So what I'm going to be doing for the dashboard is I'm going to be customizing these gadgets based on how I want to use the system. So I'm going to click on Save, and now my gadget has updated, and I notice like Mace has a last match, any listings that have been sent out, and I can always sort by clicking on the header of any of these columns. But like I said before, this is a shortcut to the functionality. So if I want to pull up Mace's contact record, very simple, I can click on it. I will notice that there's that index finger telling me I can do something with it. It'll click through, but also I have help text that says edit this contact. So I click on Mace window, and I notice it will bring up his contact record, and I can go through the individual tabs if I would like. Again, to return back to my default dashboard, I'm going to click on Flexmls. Now the new search gadget, we're looking for something similar as well. If we want to customize this gadget, we can just go to the 3 dots right here, and we're looking for settings. So the new search gadget, it's defaulting to residential, and you'll notice something that says 1.5 My Quick Search. I created my own quick search template. That's something we're going to do in the 201 class on Thursday. So if you're curious how that works, basically These defaults like residential, land, multifamily, these are provided to you by the board, and then the fields that are able to search on by default, you can customize that and remove or add fields however you want. So those fields are always there on the left side when you're in a search. So I'm just going to add these three, click on save. And so if I want to start, say, a residential search, what I can do is just click on this right here, and this will start a residential search. And what I referred to before is the fields that are default ones on the left side. What we're going to do in the 201 class is we'll remove fields we're not interested in. We will add fields that we are interested in, and then we can save our own quick search template. And that's what this is, the 1.5 My Quick Search template. So I'm going to return back to the default dashboard by clicking on Flexmls. So that is the new search gadget. Now the hot sheet gadget. Pay very close attention to this explanation. Right now, the reason you see 317 new listings is because it is for everything in North Carolina Regional. So it's a very large geographic area. So if I want to customize this hot sheet gadget for the area that I work or areas that I work, it's very simple. We're going to go to the three dots. And what we're looking for is settings right here. Three dots and settings. I click on settings. Now you'll notice it says county, city, zip code, subdivision, location type, property type. So all kinds of things that I can narrow down by. I'm just going to type in Rocky Mount and click on save. So right now we have a hot sheet for just the city of Rocky Mount, and watch my mouse behavior. Remember when it switches to that index finger, it means I can do something with it. So it says click to see all listings for this event. So if I want to see new listings, click on new listings, and it will bring me into the new listing section. And if I were to click or hover here, I will see the other sections if I wanted to try, say, like what has been closed. Now, hot sheets, when they're run on money, go back 72 hours because of the weekend, where normally they would go back 24 hours. And I'm going to click on Flexmls to return back to my dashboard. So this hot sheet is just for the city of Rocky Mount. Before, the default was for everything in North Carolina Regional. If I want to create another hot sheet gadget, so put one here and then put another one side by side, this is very simple. What we're going to do is we're going to go up to customize, and I'm going to add a new gadget. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to add a hot sheet gadget. I'm just going to start clicking through till I find it. Oh, there it is. It's under daily, and it says hot sheet is already on this dashboard. That's fine. I'm going to add another one, and then I'm going to return back to my dashboard. So whenever you add a new gadget, it's going to be down at the bottom. So I'm going to scroll down. I find it right here, and I'm going to see what until I get the 4 directionals. Then I'm going to hold my left mouse button down, and I'm going to move this up. So I'm going to have the 2 hot sheet gadgets side by side. So this is the one for the city of Rocky Mount, where this hot sheet gadget, as we see with the really high numbers, this is for everything in North Carolina Regional. But this time I want to narrow this hot sheet gadget to a different city or area. So go to the 3 dots. I'm looking for settings. Give it a second to load, and then we'll try city of Tarboro, and I'll click on save. So I now have the hot sheet gadget for Rocky Mount and the hot sheet gadget for the city of Tarboro. So you can have as many gadgets on a dashboard as you'd like, but we're just going to keep moving along. So the next one is the My Listings gadget. And if you want to customize this one, you're going to go to the 3 dots right here, go to settings, and it says days to expire 14, days sold 365. So maybe I want to see all my listings that are going to expire in the next 7 days and everything I've sold in the last year. Your default would be 30, but I like to switch it to 365. And I'm going to click on save. Now you'll notice this is a test account, so I don't have any numbers here, but if you look on your dashboard, you may notice under the listings to expire, it might say 1 or 2. Meaning if I set that for 7 days or 14 days, that's going to tell me all my listings that are going to expire in that amount of days. Now that's great and wonderful, assuming you always log into Flexmls every day and check that. But let's say you're going on vacation or you don't log in for a while and you want to make sure you know when your listings are going to expire. There's a really easy setting that we can set up. So what we're going to do is we're going to go up to this box right here that says enter an address, city zip. This is the quick launch bar, which we will talk about more in the second hour. I'm going to type in the word general, because what I'm looking for is I'm looking for something called general preferences right here, general preferences. And when I click on general preferences and I scroll down to the bottom, it's gonna be about 5 up. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, actually 6 up. Expiring listing notification. Now, yours is gonna be unchecked, and then this will be grayed out. So what you wanna do is check the box, and the default should be 7 days, or you wanna do 10 days, whatever you wanna do. And so with that, it'll actually tell you if you do it 10 days before the expiration date, you'll get an email, and then once per day, 7 days previous. So you'll get an email for 7 straight days letting you know that your listing is going to expire. So just put in the date that you would like. And then what we're going to do is we're going to click on save. Okay, we're going to do that one more time. We're going to go up to general preferences. This is where we customize our expiring listing notification, which is an email. The reason this is important is because you do have, when I scroll down, my listings, again, it says listing to expire, but you only if you look at this, would you know that? So it makes sense to use a email notification. So we're going to go up to general, go to general preferences, scroll down to the bottom, and it's 6 from the bottom. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Again, it's going to be unchecked by default. So we check the box, put in the number of days that we'd like, and we're going to click on save. Okay, the save searches gadget. Now to customize this one, we're going to go to the 3 dots, go to settings. Now the default settings are number of searches, max 100. You start with 50. You can order by name or last update. I like the name. But personally, what I like to do is I like to switch the all searches to only favorites. And the reason being is when I do that, I can just have my favorite searches right on the front of my screen. The reason I do that is because if I want to see all my saved searches, I can just click on the header. Remember, the header is a shortcut into the functionality. Just like if I were to click on my listings, it'll bring me into the my listings section if I have any listings. I do not, so I see no listings are found. But if I go and click on the save searches header right here, it'll bring me into the save searches section. And so I see all my searches, my favorites, and then any drafts that I've had. So that's why I like setting this save searches gadget. I go to the customize and show settings and just favorites, because what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a couple of favorite searches, and then so they'll always be right here in the front screen, so I don't have to search for them. So what I mean by that is I'm going to do a land search, and let's do the city of Rocky Mount. So let's say I do a lot of land searches in the city of Rocky Mount, and I'm tired of always having to type in city of Rocky Mount. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to save this search as a favorite with Rocky Mount already filled out. So when I pull up the search, again, Rocky Mount will already be filled out. So I'm going to go up to save search. give this a second to load. And this is the key thing here, mark as a favorite. So I'm going to call this one Rocky Mount Land and click on save. Now I'm not going to add a contact or add a subscription. That's the kind of thing that I do for a client, and we will be doing that in the third hour. Click on save. And so now when I return back to my dashboard, under my Save Searches gadget, I will see City or Rocky Mount Land. So that is the default one. So if I click on that, Rocky Mount, I go to edit search, Rocky Mount is already filled out. So you can do this with cities, subdivisions, counties, price ranges, however you want to do it, but that information is already going to be filled out. So we're going to do this one more time. I'll start a multifamily search. Okay, there's only 47, so I probably won't find something, but so let's just switch to residential. And this one, we're going to do the city of Tarboro. And so I said, do a lot of business there. So I'm going to go up to save search. And we'll just call this one residential. So I know that's already filled out. So we're just using these favorite searches like templates to speed up how we use the system. A lot of what I'm going to be covering today is the efficient way, way of doing things inside of Flexmls to save yourself some time. Okay, click on my Flexmls return to my dashboard, and we did see the hover text that says return to dashboard. Okay, and then finally we have a display listings gadget on the home screen. This one, if you go to the settings, you do have an option to look at your listings or office listings. I find most people like to switch it to the office listings if they're just curious, because this My Listings gadget right here defaults to your listings. Okay, so I showed you how to customize the home dashboard, but what I want to do is I want to create a couple of new custom dashboards with information that I want to see. So to do that, I'm going to go up to customize, and I'm not going to add a gadget. I'm going to add an entirely new dashboard. So I'm going to click on add new dashboard. And what I'm looking for is I'm looking for market stats. So there's a market stats dashboard, and it says a set of statistical gadgets. So it has absorption rate, prices, inventory, sale to original list price ratio, sold days on market, and volume. And so when I add this dashboard, that's what we see: absorption rate, inventory, sold days on market, prices, sale to original list price ratio, and volume. Now this is fascinating. Like, we see the absorption rate has gone from 4 months to a little more than 2 months. And this is a lot of the panic buying and how hot the market is right now with COVID. Now this is fascinating. And even like the inventory, we notice there's a drop, but this is for everything in North Carolina regional. So what you may want to do is customize this. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to customize this absorption rate gadget for Rocky Mount. So we're going to go to the 3 dots, and just like we saw before, if we want to customize something, we're looking for settings. So I'm going to go to settings, and you'll see this, it changes this box, and there's a location box that I click inside. Now pay close attention to this explanation. If I click inside this box, it gives me a pop-up with some ideas, but these aren't the only ideas. People get kind of confused and think, okay, well, what if I want something else? That's fine. Just type in the name. So I'm going to type in Rocky Mount. So I'm looking for the city of Rocky Mount, or I could do a subdivision if I'd like. You can be very, very specific with these gadgets. So I'm just city of Rocky Mount. Now watch what happens when I do the subdivision of Rocky Mount. It says, please remove one location before adding another. You're only allowed one. Now, you only are allowed to do one thing in these boxes. So listen to what I'm going to say carefully. In the 3rd hour of the class, we're going to be drawing map shapes. A map shape is one thing. That map shape can include multiple subdivisions, multiple cities, or it could include property around a golf course community. Whatever you want, you can draw one shape, but again, it can include multiple things. So if you wanted to do a couple different subdivisions that were next to each other that have very similar houses, just draw the map shape that includes both those subdivisions. Because again, you can only do one thing here, but a map shape can include multiple things. So I will bring that up again in the third hour of the class. But we're gonna click on save. So our absorption rate is for the city of Rocky Mount, and so it's pretty similar to the North Carolina regional, but you might run this for a different city and have very different stats. So what I want to do is I want to add 2 more absorption rate gadgets. So I'm just going to put them side by side. So I'm going to go up to customize. We already have that market stats dashboard, which we have right here. I just want to add 2 more gadgets. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to go to add gadgets. And let's see, where is it? Okay, statistics. We're going to add absorption rate. And then another absorption rate. And then we're going to turn back to our dashboard. So we have our one that we've already customized to the left, and then you're going to wonder, okay, where are the other ones? Well, whenever you add gadgets, they're down at the bottom. So I'm going to hold my left mouse button down, and I'm going to move this up. And then same thing for this one. Move it up. So we see this. So this is for everything in North Carolina Regional, which is very similar to Rocky Mount, but let's do a different one. So we're going to go to the 3 dots. And then I'm going to put in, this time we'll do Nashville. City of Nashville. And click on save. So this is the absorption rate for Rocky Mount. This is Nashville, where Nashville actually has, it was hotter earlier in the year, and it's still very, very hot. So what is the absorption rate? Well, the absorption rate is the number of months of inventory to dry up if there's no new inventory. And so let's do it now for Tarboro. So we're going to go to the 3 dots, go to settings. Do Tarboro City and click on save. And so for Tarboro, we see a much greater range in absorption rate. So absorption rate, 0 to 4 months is a seller's market. 4 to 5 months is a neutral market. So the seller's market, meaning terms will be favorable to the seller. They usually get more money. And then 5 months and above is a buyer's market, where things are on the market longer. Buyers tend to get better deals. So we notice it was a buyer's market last year, and then it's become very, very hot. So in the city, but even every different city is a little bit different. And so if you're looking at the aggregate, you're looking at all of North Carolina Regional, you may not get as much valuable information. And so I'm going to do inventory, 2 more inventory gadgets for these same 3 cities to see if we see something different. So I'm going to move this one over, and we're going to go up to customize. And we're going to add a few more gadgets, 2 more inventory gadgets. Once you see how easy this is, you can do it on your own. So we return back to our dashboard. And so again, those will be down at the bottom. Let's move this one up. And we'll move this one up. Okay, so we have 3 inventory gadgets. Now I'm going to customize them the exact same way that I did these 3 up the top. So we're going to go to the 3 dots, Rocky Mount. So inventory's dropped quite a bit. Go to Nashville. Bit more variation. And then we'll do Tarboro. Okay, so then we see it's dropped almost by half for the city of Tarboro. Okay, so that is how we do some dashboard customizations. I'm going to return back to my default dashboard by clicking on Flexmls. But if I want to get that other one that I did, the market stats is right here. So to sum up the things that we're doing in the dashboards, the first thing we're doing is we're going to the three dots and going to settings. If we want to customize the material or the data that is inside the gadget. And remember, the headers for these gadgets are shortcuts to the functionality. Other thing we did is when we hover over it and we get the 4 directionals, we can hold our left mouse button and we can change the order of things. Then if we decide that we want to add another gadget, like a hot sheet gadget, it's very simple. We go up to customize and we add a gadget. And I'm going to do another hot sheet gadget right here. And remember, any new gadget will be down at the bottom. So I'm going to move this one up. And this one I'm going to do for the city of Nashville. Give it a second to load. City of Nashville. And click on save. So we can add a new gadget, and then also we can go up to customize and add an entirely new dashboard. So that's what we did. We went to add a new dashboard, and there's other options that you can do, but we specifically looked for the market stats one, which has these 6 gadgets. And then after we added a market stats, we looked at these gadgets and said, okay, these 6 are for everything in all of North Carolina regional. The aggregate can be interesting, but if you're breaking stuff down, you might find some more valuable information if you look at the city or the subdivision or whatever level you look at. And one other thing I want to point out that's really cool is if you go to, like, I'll return back to my default dashboard. If you go to customize, it does allow you to change the layout. So if I really like the 3 side by side, I can change this layout to do the 3 gadgets side by side. And then I would just have to move stuff around so I can get that to work. Okay, so that basically sums up what we're going to do on the dashboard. We're going to spend the last part of this hour talking about adding a listing. So just give me 1 second. Okay, so to add listings, you look for the add listing right here, or do the menu item right here of add listing, and I'll talk about menu items in the second hour of the class. So to add listings inside of Flexmls, it really is easy. You decide what property type you're going to do. I'm going to do residential, and decide what who your listing member will be. It would normally be you or someone in the office, depending on what your access is. And then if you have any questions about the regular listing or parent listing, how this works, I just do want to point out there is something called the MLS intranet right here. I'm actually going to right click this and open it up into a new tab. There's all kinds of great stuff in the MLS intranet when it comes to adding listings or rules and regulations. So you have the rules and regulations, you have data entry, like address entry errors. Make sure you read all this stuff. If you have any questions, check it. Is data quality control. We'll talk about that after, like, a listing would be live. But basically, after you've made a listing live, you want to use the check it function to make sure that you have data quality. And the parent and child listings, that is right here if you're curious about how that works. So your board has done a really, really great job providing all kinds of information when it comes to listing maintenance or other things in this MLS intranet. Okay, so I'm going to click on next. Okay, so whenever you see these red or pink fields, that means they are required. So I'm just going to start entering in information. So 3409 Greenfield and the drive. And then county, do Nash County. The city is Rocky Mount. And so these won't, field won't open up until you put an entry into the previous one. That's why if you click on stuff, you may not notice it's not available yet. 27804. And I'm going to plug in the tax identifier. 3840 05 29 1390. And so what this is going to do is this is going to search, and it should populate the tax data. Then we're going to click on next. And what it's going to do is it's going to zoom into that location. Now, if you want to switch to the satellite view to see if it's on the correct house, you happen to know that is correct. Otherwise, you can hold your left mouse button and move it around. But I know it's on the correct house, so I'm going to leave it there. And then click on use this location. Now, when I do that, you'll notice it's going to jump to the main fields tab. And I'm going to scroll down a little bit and show you, okay, some of the information is already filled out. This is what is coming from the auto population. That's the reason on the address tab, we fill out this information and put in the tax identifier, because it's going to populate tax data on the main fields tab. And so we're just going to go through a couple of these, and I want to explain something. So office exclusive says this is a permanent option and should not be used as delayed marketing. If yes, this listing is only available to the listing office and will not be on the MLS for general cooperation. So this might not necessarily be that common, but the thing that you want to pay attention to is right here, the status. You have active, and then you have coming soon, no showings. So if I go to active, this is normally going to be your default. And when you do active, you will notice something that says delayed marketing. If marked as yes, this listing will be visible to you and only those that can edit your listing. So if you do delayed marketing added to yes, you need to put in a date. So like when this would go live. So the delayed marketing, the purpose is you have a contract in place, but you need to get photos, you need to, stage stuff, that kind of thing. That's the purpose of delayed marketing. And then for coming soon, you can advertise the listing as coming soon, but it has to be less within 30 days. So make sure you're very aware of what off exclusive, what delayed marketing, and what's status of active is. And if you go in your MLS intranet, you will see some explanations here. So you want to make sure you're entering your information correctly when it comes to listings. So basically what I'm going to do is I'm just going to start putting in some fields for this. So like effective date, expiration date. Now I'm not going to do the entire listing, but I just want to point out a couple of things. So you need to put in the red or pink fields, however you see it. And what's really important is looking at these question marks. These question marks will give you additional information on that field. And if you have any questions of what any of this means, I'd recommend discussing it with your broker. Now, you'll notice that, like I said before, some of this information is auto-populated. This is coming from your tax provider. If any of this information is incorrect, you can always fix it. But ideally, it should be correct because, again, it's coming from the tax provider. So just entering in some information. Now you'll notice up at the top, it says auto saving listing, and it says last auto save 6:37 a.m. The reason it says 6 is because I'm currently outside Portland. I'm on Pacific time, but it's going to automatically save your incomplete listings every 2 minutes. So if you accidentally close your browser or your computer crashes, you will find your incomplete listings in a section called My Incomplete. So I'm going to open this up into a new tab, and I see my incomplete listings. So this one today at 10:19, and this is one the last time I taught this 101 class. So again, your incomplete listings will be saved every 2 minutes. So keep going through. So to fill out the fields at advertising remarks, it'll tell you have 2,000 characters available. And whereas office remarks would be specific, only people in your office would be able to see this. We're going to go to the details tab, or you can use the next button. Now the details tab, you're going to have these groups, and if there's a red banner like this, it's going to tell you rules specific to this detail group, like showing instructions, select between 1 and 14. Whereas you might see kind of like a red or pink field. That means just this specific field inside this group is required. Keep going down. So there's all kinds of stuff you can fill out. Next one would be rooms. And you can add a room here. And so we do room name, master bedroom. Put in the length, the width. And you have information right here. So ideally you want to add as much information as possible when it comes to rooms, things like that, because you're just going to help yourself and other realtors find properties. We're going to go to the next step. Now photos, where you would choose a file. Now you're required to upload at least one photo before the listing goes live. And generally this is seen as the primary approach of the property, the main view of the house. And then we're going to go to broker distribution. Now I find most people don't do anything here, but if they might direct the listing to be excluded from the internet, if your client does not want it going out in syndication, you can check this box and you'll notice all of those get unchecked. Now something like this, if you're not quite sure what it means, what's really cool about the help functionality in Flexmls is if you go to help and there's a section called help with this page, it'll give you help specific to the page that you're on. So if I want to know all about what broker distribution tab does, this will explain it for me. And so if I'm ready to add this listing, I would go to add listing. Now this is not going to work because it says there are 64 errors. The reason there are 64 errors is because there was a lot of red or pink fields that were required and I didn't do anything with them. So now look what happens when it says show all fields. It switches to empty required fields only. So what it will actually do is show me just the fields that I have to fill out before this goes live. But again, there's 64 errors, so I would have to fill in all that information before this can go live. Now, if I want to just save it as incomplete because I need to do some other stuff, I'm going to do so. And so that was the listing information. I still have all those fields that are required, but what I can do before it goes live is I can go to photos, upload photos if I want to do multiple photos, any documents. So I go to the document section and you can choose a file and then decide, explain what it is. So photos can be up to 3000 by 2000 resolution. Again, photos can be up to 3000 by 2000 resolution. If you upload a photo that's larger than 3000 by 2000 resolution, it'll shrink it down proportionally. Now, an individual photo can be up to 15 megabytes. If it's larger than 15 megabytes, it won't let you upload it. But as long as it's under 15 megabytes, it'll upload it. And again, if it's larger than 3000 by 2000 resolution, it'll shrink it down proportionally. Whereas documents have to be less than 10 megabytes. But if you can always go to shrink PDF, there are websites online where it will compress your PDF. If your PDF was like a bad scan or something and you need to shrink it down, it's very simple to find a software online that will do it for you. And you don't have to download the software. Like the website will do it, and then you download the document after it's been processed. And then you have videos and virtual tours. Now a video is something that's hosted on another site. Flexmls does not host videos. And if you're curious about, I have an MLS intranet. If you're curious about what those rules are, just talk to your broker about the branding rules. But usually right here, virtual tours branded and unbranded will explain that. Whereas a virtual tour is actually a URL that's provided to you, usually like a virtual tour company will give you URLs, like the branded version and the unbranded. Whereas again, the video is going to be hosted on another site. So if I'm ready to make this listing live, what I would do is just go back into listing information, assuming I entered all the other stuff. And then I would fill out all the fields. And once everything, all the required fields are filled out, then what I'm going to do is I'm going to add this listing. So once you've added a listing, it will give you an MLS number. And once you have the MLS number, then it's live. So that was to add a listing. But if you need to change any listings, you just go to change or change listing. And this is a test account, so I don't see anything, but you would see an MLS number. You click on this, and this is where you can change the listing. Now, on changing listings, one of the things that you want to look for is, and I mentioned it in the MLS intranet, when it comes to data quality control, you have something called Check It, which is another vendor product, which will check your listings. There's going to be like a little button inside the change listing section. So you're going to want to check your listings to make sure that you are following proper data control. And you also have the data compliance assurance policy. So before you do any data entry, I highly recommend reading all these. These are PDFs that were provided by your board with all kinds of great information about listing maintenance, and then also check the parent-child if you're curious. But the reason this is so important is because you want to make sure, one, your data is good, but also that your listing is mapped correctly and put in the correct location. Because if you're uploading listings, you're adding listings, and it's in the wrong location, and what we'll talk about in the third hour of the class, if people are drawing map shapes and it's in the wrong location, it won't show up in their map shape. So you may not get the exposure that you want for your listing. So it's very important to get it in the correct location. Okay, so we're just going to spend a few minutes summing up what we did for the first hour, and then we are going to take a 10-minute break. So in the first hour, we're covering the dashboard. So when you first log into Flexmls, you're going to see a dashboard. Now, my dashboard already looks different than yours because yours was normally 2 gadgets side by side. What I did is I went up to customize and I changed the layout. So it's personal preference, however you want to do it. Maybe I want to switch it back to the 2 columns. However large your screen is or however you want to look at it. But the things we were focusing on the dashboard in the first hour is the first thing is we can customize these individual gadgets. So for the contacts gadget, if I want to customize the data that is inside this gadget, it's very simple. I'm going to go to my 3 dots, look for settings, and then when I see this list, hold down Control, or if I have a Mac command, and click or unclick the things that are important to me in this gadget. Now this gadget, you don't need to show all the functionality because there's a shortcut to actual contact management right here. And I see my index finger telling me that I can click on this, but I also see hover text that says click here to go to contacts. Otherwise, if I want to pull up a contact like say Luke Skywalker, click on him, and this will have his contact record. And I can go through the different tabs if I'd like, looking at his information. To return back to my default dashboard, I'm going to click on Flexmls. So we customize some gadgets. Now you'll notice my hot sheet gadget, I have 3 different ones because the default hot sheet gadget shows everything in North Carolina Regional. And there's hundreds of new listings for the last 72 hours. Or we could always switch it to whatever we want here. But if I want to add another gadget, another hot sheet gadget for the areas I work, it's very simple. Go up to Customize. I'm going to add a gadget. And then I just go through the list on the left side to figure out where that is. It's under Daily. And I'm going to add another hot sheet gadget. And anytime I've added a gadget, it's down at the bottom. So if I want to pull it up, there it is. I'm sorry, go side by side. And if I want to customize this, go to the 3 dots and go to settings. Now the key thing about these hot sheet gadgets Just give it a second to load. Is if I click inside city, I can put in a name. So maybe this time I'll just put in Jacksonville. I want to see what's going on in Jacksonville. I know it's not close to your geographic area, but just to show you how that works. So we added gadgets, but then the other thing that we focused on is if we go up to customize, we can add a gadget, change the layout, which we just reviewed, but you can add an entirely new dashboard. So a couple different dashboards. You could add a blank dashboard, and I call this one my hot sheet. So I ended up adding like 6 different hot sheet gadgets, all for different areas that I work. Or the one that I really like is the market stats one. So I add this market stats dashboard. So I see absorption rate, inventory, sold days on market, prices, sale to original list price ratio, and volume. Now, this is the aggregate, everything in North Carolina regional. So if you want to break these down into certain areas, very simple. We just go to the 3 dots. We're going to look for settings. And I'm going to do, we'll do Nashville. Remember, you can only do one thing here, but when we draw map shapes on in the 3rd hour, we will see how we can use a map shape to include multiple things, like multiple subdivisions, cities, whatever it is we want to do. So I'm going to click on save. So now this is the original list price ratio to the national. And we see there's quite a bit more variation versus the aggregate. And if we want to add another sale to original list price ratio for a different city, simple. Just go to customize. We're going to add a new gadget. And where is it? It's down in statistics. Sale to original list price ratio. Add another. And remember, when we add a gadget, it's always down at the bottom on that dashboard. So if I wanted to move this one up, I can. And this one, we're going to do it for Tarboro. And click on save. So now this is the sale to list price ratio for Tarboro. So quite a bit of variation versus Nashville. Okay, so that is the 1st hour dashboards and listing maintenance. We're going to take a 10-minute break and start up again at, would be 10:01 your time. And then we will focus on the quick launch bar. Okay, for the 2nd hour, what we're going to be focusing on is the quick launch bar, which is this right here. Now the quick launch bar, you see that it says enter an address, city, zip, MLS number, or contact. We've already used this a few times earlier on in class. What I'm going to do is I'm going to kind of break down all the different things that you can do in the quick launch bar. And so let me actually just close that tab and we'll just make sure we have a clean screen. Okay, so you'll notice when I click inside this box, this is enter an address, city, zip. It has a drop down. It says recent searches, and it actually shows me 5 searches. So one 5 days ago, 13 days ago. So when I was teaching this class for this board or other boards in North Carolina Regional, and it actually shows me some quick launch history. So if you don't do anything, what it will do is it will show you your most recent searches. So what's cool about draft searches is even if you forget to save something, you can see draft searches up in the quick launch bar. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to give you 6 things that you can type into this quick launch bar to get started. So the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to type in an MLS number. So I'm going to put in 100208615. Again, 100208615. And I'd highly recommend that what you would do is you would put in an actual MLS number and then write that down. If you're taking notes at home, use an actual MLS number, because I want you to make sure for all the syntax that I'm going to provide you for the next 20 minutes or so, you have actual examples so you don't get confused. So I'm going to put in this right here. Click on it. And this will pull up this MLS number. So again, if I put in an MLS number, I can plug it into the quick launch bar and it will pull up that property. Now, the functionality of the quick launch bar, This will also work in the app. So I'm going to give you 6 things that you can do in the quick launch bar. The first 5 things you can do in your Flexmls Pro app as well. So let's say if you meet up with a client and they provide you with an MLS number, you don't have to go back to your office. You can plug that into your Flexmls Pro app and pull up that listing. So that was the first thing that we're going to do. Okay, so first one is an MLS number. Now the second thing that we're going to do is we're going to type in an address. Now an example of an address is I want to put in 412, and I highly recommend writing this down, Wildwood. So I type in 412 Wildwood. Now it's already found it. I didn't have to type an avenue, and it's already found it. So I can click on this, or I can open it up into a new tab. If I don't want to lose the work that I'm doing, like I was already doing a search or something, I can open this up into a new tab. And so I've opened this up into a new tab. Now pay close attention to this explanation. When I type in an address, it has to be an address of something that's been in the MLS. Now, for example, if I were to type in 411 Wildwood, it doesn't find anything. That doesn't mean that there's not a house across the street at 411 Wildwood. It just means it's never been listed in the MLS before. So when you're putting in an address, you're seeing if it's ever been listed. So it's a really great thing if you want to, if someone asks you about a property, well, let's see, has it ever been in the MLS? Yes, it has. So it's active. And you'll notice that I clicked on new tab to open this up into a new tab. Okay, so just to sum up what we've done so far, the first thing that we did is we typed in an MLS number. So one MLS number, 1002-08615. If you have multiple MLS numbers, that's not going to work here, but there is other functionality that will allow that. And we will get to that towards the end of this hour. Then the second thing we did is we typed in an MLS number, 412 Wildwood. And again, this has to be an address of an actual listing. If it's ever been listed in the MLS, if it has not, it will not find it. So that was number 1 was an MLS number. Number 2 was an address. Now, the third thing that we can do is we can do a radius search. And there's 3 different ways we can do a radius search. Now, the first one we can do is we can do a radius search around an MLS number. The second one we can do is we can do a radius search around an address. Now, pay close attention to this explanation. A radius search around an address doesn't have to be an address of a listing in the MLS. For the, we did, first one was an MLS number, second one was an address. The third one is a radius. But that radius around an address can be any address that Google can find. It doesn't have to be in the actual MLS. So the example would be is, let's say you have a client who wants you to do a CMA on their listing on their property. It's never been in the MLS, so they want you to do a mile radius around that. You would do 1 mile from and then put in the address of the subject property. But again, it doesn't have to be in the actual MLS. And then the third one we can do is we can do a radius search around a landmark or a location. So that's what we're going to do. First one we're going to do is an MLS number. So I'm going to type in 1 mile from, or 2 miles from, or 3 miles from, whatever you want to do, and put in 1002-08615. And I can do residential, my quick search, or land. Now, it shows you the first 3 numerically that you see for your searches. So if you needed to do something like commercial, you would just type in the word commercial to begin it, and then you'd see commercial sale or lease. 1 mile from, and click on this. And so now what it's done is it's done a 1 mile address around this MLS number. And if I go to the edit search tab, that's what I'll see. I'll see a circle, and there is going to be a 1 mile radius around that MLS number. Now, what I want you to always do is whenever you're doing radius searching, make sure you're checking out the map to see that it's in the correct location. The reason this is important is when people list properties, you're assuming they put it in the correct location, but you don't actually know until you verify. So that's why I was switching to either that at search or I check out the map tab to see if it's in the correct location. I can even zoom out and say, yep, this is correct. Then now the next radius we're going to do is we are going to do a radius around an address. And like I said before, when it comes to a radius around an address, it doesn't actually have to be in the MLS. If it's any address that Google can find, just plug it in. So I'm going to put in 2 miles from 2400 Horseshoe Drive. And I'm going to do the residential one again. Click on this. And again, first thing I do after I do a radius search is make sure that it looks correct on the map. So either go into the map tab or go into the edit search tab with the map on the right side. So does this say 2 mile radius around Horseshoe Drive? Yes, it is. And then I can put in my other search parameters. So I can put in a subtype, bedrooms, bathrooms, whatever it is that I want to do. And I can now save this search or do 12 baths 3. So you can start, basically what you're doing with the quick launch is that you're launching into the system. You're doing starting with a quick way to do it and then finishing it with a quick search. This is very important because if any of you are used to using the full search, that's going away. So we want to make sure you're using the quick launch and then the quick search because you'll have that functionality will still be there. Now, the third thing that we can do is we can put in a location. So that's what I'm going to do up here. And make sure you're writing down these actual examples. So when you try this at home, it works for you. And then I'm going to do 2 miles from Nash Day Hospital. Now, whenever I do a location, I always put in the name of the location. So like a hospital, a courthouse, Costco, whatever. And then I put in the city and the state. The reason I'm doing this is I want to make sure Google has enough information to find this. Now, Nash Day Hospital may be unique across the country. Nothing else has named that. So it would find that. But if I were to type in Walmart, well, there's Walmarts everywhere. So unless you were to put in a city and the state abbreviation, it's not necessarily going to find it. So again, whenever you do a location of something, now what would be the context of this? Well, let's imagine that you have a client who's going to become a new attending physician at the hospital. And he says he wants to live within a couple miles of the hospital. He's big into biking, so he wants to bike to work every day. It's nice out. So you're going to do a 2 mile radius around that location. Or let's say you have a client who's going to be the new principal at the elementary school. Again, wants to live within a certain distance. So ask you to do a mile or 2 mile or 3 mile radius around that location. So that's what we're doing right here. We're going to do a 2 mile radius around the hospital. And like I did with the other search parameters, or the other ones that I did is I was checking either the edit search or the map to make sure, is that actually a 1 mile or 2 mile radius around the hospital? And I see that it is. Okay, so just to sum up the 3 different ways we can do radius searching, I'm going to type them then one more time. We did a 1 mile radius around an MLS number. Click on it, or I could open this up into a new tab if I'd like. Key thing, again, I was checking the map to make sure it's in the correct location. Then what we did is we did a 2 mile radius around an address. Again, this doesn't have to be an address for something that's in the system. It doesn't have to be spelled horseshoe correctly. But as long as Google can find the address, it will be able to do a radius around it. So the example I gave before, you have a client who wants to put their house on the market. It's never been in the MLS, but they still want you to do a radius search. As long as you have that address that Google can find, because you see it right down here. It says Google, it's getting sent to Google and Google is processing it. And then the third one we did is we did an actual location. So once it's time, we'll do 3 miles. 3 miles from Nash Day Hospital. You'll notice I'm not capitalizing any of this because I don't need to. And also, I'm not separating the city and the state with any commas because we'll be using commas in a little bit. Commas are meant to break down the different types of search syntax. So if you use commas there, it's going to break it down when it gets sent to Google, and Google won't find it. So then we did a 3-mile radius around the Nash Day Rocky Mount Hospital. If I go to edit search, I will see the map, and then I can put in my other search parameters if I would like. Okay, so that was number 3. So the first one was an MLS number. The second one was an address. And then the third one was a radius. And so the next one we're going to do is we're going to do a name. Now, what I mean by name is I could type in the name of a contact like Luke for Luke Skywalker, but you'll notice I also have a saved search called Luke Skywalker, 3 to 4 bed Jacksonville. I have a CMA, which I will do. This is the 301 class when we're going to cover CMAs and statistics. I have a contact by the name of Luke, but also any other Lukes that are in the board. Now, whenever you see members, it's going to come back with just 5 as the maximum. There may be more than 5 Lukes, and I assume there are because North Carolina Regional has thousands and thousands of members. But if you know what you're looking for, you can maybe even do a last name. So this time I'm just going to type in Stavish. So maybe I couldn't find the Luke that I want, but I know his last name. So if I click on him, it'll pop up his record inside of Flexmls. I see his profile photo, website, cell phone. And if I want to view any of his listings, I can do so. So sometimes you're just curious, you're working with another realtor, you want to see what they've been doing. So this is what he has been doing. So number 4 was a name. So again, this is a name of a search of a CMA, whatever is something named in the system, you can pull it up. So that was number 4. So the next one we're going to do is we're going to type in an actual search. So what I mean is we're going to have search syntax that we're going to put in here, and I'm going to give you 3 different examples, and I want to make sure that you're writing down these examples. So again, when you walk away from this class, you have specific examples, then you can try them out, and then once you see how it works, you just edit the syntax, you change the wording. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to type in land, and now you will notice that I'm going to do a comma because I'm going to break up land, and then I'm going to put in a price range. So land 100 to 120K. So you'll notice it says start new search, land 100 to 120,000 listing price. So whenever you start doing searching here, what I want you to do is I want you to make sure that the drop down right here is matching what you're putting up here. Because watch what happens when I type in land, comma, space, 100 to 120. It just says quick search as land. It doesn't know 100 to 120 is a price range because the K in this syntax identifies it as a price. So again, make sure you're right here. You see that this matches this. If it does, I can click on this, or I can open it up into a new tab if I would like. But I've started the search between land and 100 to 120,000. And then I can, once that searches, I can always go to edit search and put in other search parameters if I would like. So a lot of what we're going to be doing in the quick launch this hour is focusing on ways to make your searching very quick. What I mean by that is, let's say you're working in an open house and someone comes up to you. Hold on, we have a question. Catherine asks, can you put in commercial land just like that? Let me see. Okay, you have a commercial sale or lease. I don't know if that includes your land. Otherwise, what you would do is if there's like a subtype, okay, commercial industry, you just go like that. Takes you an extra 5 seconds, and now you see the commercial industrial land subtype. So you can't type that in up. The subtype. Subtype is not a field that's common across all Flexmls customers. So what works here is bedrooms, bathrooms, price range, status. So you just put in what you can up here, and then you can jump to, like, say, a subtype and do the rest. So land, comma space, 100-120K. And I could always put in, say, City of Rocky Mount. And set. You're going to be reading your drop down, reading what it says to make sure it matches with what you're doing. Because if you type in something, it doesn't find it. What I mean by that is if I were to type in Rocky Mount, it says City of Rocky Mount, Mount Gilead. The reason it does this is because Rocky Mount is 2 words. Whenever the Flexmls quick launch sees 2 words, it thinks it's 2 different things. So if you preface it by saying City of, then it knows Rocky Mount is one thing, and that's why it will work. And so we'll click on this, and we'll see if there's any land between 100 and 120 in the City of Rocky Mount. Okay, we have no results. Now we're going to get a little fancier with our search syntax. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to type in closed within last. Now you'll notice I'm not typing closed within the last. That's proper English, but it doesn't find it. So a couple different things I can do. I can do closed within last 3 days. And you'll see right here, it gives me that date range. And you're reading your drop down. Last 3 months. See 3 months. Or last 3 years. So you can do days, months, or years here. And then what you're going to do is you're going to do a comma and a space. Now watch what I do this time. I'm going to do 1-1.2M. And so M stands for million. So we see 1 million to 1.2 million, whereas K stands for thousands. That's why you want to make sure you're typing in the right information. And then, so we're seeing what has closed within the last 3 years for 1 and 1/2 million. So that's probably too long of a time frame. So I'm actually going to switch that to say 3 months. Let's say you're working in an open house. Someone comes in and says, hey, this is the kind of money we have to spend. We have no idea what we want. So why don't you see what's just closed within the last 3 months? And we're doing the last 3 months because we know there's a lot of panic buying. It might be driving the price up. So if you were to go back 6 months or 9 months from now, you may not be accurately capturing the market. So we see 47. We can go to the map, see what's on the map. So mostly what you see is beachfront property for that price. Okay, so now we're going to get really fancy on our search syntax. So I'm going to clear this out. And I'm going to type in active, comma space, 100 to 150K, comma space. Again, I'm reading the output down here to make sure that this is matching what I'm typing in. Because again, if I were to do 100 to 150 and do a comma, it just says active because it doesn't know the purpose of that 100 to 150. So I add the K, it lets it know it's thousands, do a comma and a space. And then I'm going to put in 3 to 4 bed, do a comma space, 2 bath. And so what do we see? We see 3 to 4 bedrooms. That's correct. The 2 bath. If I don't do a range of bathrooms or bedrooms, it says 2+. So it uses that number as a minimum. So anything more than 2 baths will come back. Do another comma space. Put in 1,500 to 1,800 square feet. Make sure that it's recognized that square foot heated. And do another comma space. Now, if you're writing down this syntax, and I highly recommend you do active, comma space, 100 to 150K, 3 to 4 bed, 2 bath, 1,500 to 1,800 square feet. And then what I would like you to do is write down the word location. Write down the word location. Now, you're not going to type in the word location, but I want you to think of location. So location could be City of Rocky Mount. And we see City of Rocky Mount. Or a location could be a radius search. So you could type in 1 mile from and an MLS number, or 2 miles from and an address, or 3 miles from and Nash Day Hospital, Rocky Mount, NC. Does that make sense? Y'all are very quiet right now in the chat, so I just want to make sure if nothing's making sense to you right now, please type something into the chat. Okay. But I'm just going to do the city of Rocky Mount, and we're going to type it in and see what we get. And so we see we've come back with 3 results. And if we were to go to edit search, we can put in other search parameters. Or if you want to go to the detail tab, you can look at these individual properties. Okay, Catherine asks, can you also do closed? Yes. So any status that you can put in, I can just change this to say closed. Now, if I just do status to closed, closed is going to be all closed. So this is where I probably want to do close within last 3 months. Maybe you have a client, similar thing. They want to see, hey, what can they get in the city of Rocky Mount with all of these other search parameters? What's closed in the last 3 months? Click on that. So that works. And if we go to our edit search, we will see that that's filled out. The reason I'm giving you different syntax, like how different things work, is I want you to write them down. And then once you've done this a few times, you'll see it's actually very easy to swap things out. So I just want to try something. So sub of Old Farm, one of those properties was in the subdivision of Old Farm. I can do a subdivision of Old Farm. That is a location, just like a radius is a location or a city is a location, however you want to do it. So what I mean by that is, why don't I just see everything that's closed within the last, again, not the last, it's proper English, but Flexmls doesn't recognize that syntax. Close within the last 3 months sub of Old Farm. So you can swap out this different syntax and try different things. And there we go. Those are the 2 listings that have closed in the subdivision of Old Farm. Okay. So next thing we're going to do is we're going to focus on some menu items that are up in the quick launch bar. So what do I mean by that? Well, right here is your menu, and I see 5 things. And when you first logged into Flexmls, you're provided with 5 things. I think it's these 5 exact things, but I've moved mine around a bit. And if you go to menu and you see right here, here's your menu. And if you scroll down, here are all your menu items. And you'll notice when I hover over one, it gives me the index finger, meaning I can do something with it, meaning I can go to that section. But to the left, I see a star. And so if I click on the star, look what happens. It adds it up to the top. Add change listing. Maybe I want to add RPR and showing time. So what I'm doing is I'm adding the things that I use on a daily basis right up here. And then I can always go to reorder if I want to change the order of these. So if I want to move something up, again, watch your mouse behavior. The arrow is the default. If it switches to the 4 directionals, it allows me to drag and drop. So I'm going to hold my left mouse button and I'm going to move the change listing up. Maybe I want to add the hot sheet to the top. So I've changed the order however I want these, and now I'm going to click on save. Now, in the context of the quick launch bar, if you type in any of these menu items, I find it's even faster to get to it. So what I mean is I can click inside this and just start typing in copy. So if I type in copy, I can pull up the menu item to copy a listing. Or let's say I want to pull up my saved searches. So I just typed in the word saved, and I can pull up my saved searches. Okay, so Catherine asks, what wording do you use for multifamily? Do you put in quad or duplex apartments? That's not a common field across Flexmls customers. So if you typed in multi 200 to 300K, You would do multifamily 203, and then there should be a field when you go to the edit search that says whatever your field for duplex is. I'm not quite sure. Let me see if I can find it. Does anyone by chance know? I don't know this. See, it's not new construction. Subtype. There we go. Duplex, triplex, quadruplex. So if you wanted to specify it has to be a duplex, you do that. So again, subtypes is not a field that is common across all Flexmls customers. This is meant to work across like 150 Flexmls customers. So like literally multi 200 to 300. And then I can put in a city if I want, city of like Greenville or wherever that's located. But then I do the subtype of for duplex, triplex, or quadruplex. Let me just verify that that question was answered. Okay. Thank you for the questions. We're a small group, but unless y'all are asking me questions, I don't quite know if you're following along. Okay, so like I said before, we could type in something like saved for saved searches. And I could pull up my saved searches. Now there's a couple other menu items I want to point out that are very important. Now the first one is the opt-in status report. So I'm going to type in OPT. And I do want everyone to write this down, OPT for the opt-in status report. The reason this is so important, in the third hour of the class, we will be saving a search for a client and then setting up a subscription. Now inside of Flexmls, subscriptions are an opt-in process, meaning your client physically has to click on something to opt in. Once they've opted in, they're good for 13 months, unless they cancel it or, after 13 months, it will become inactive. Now, why is this so important? Well, there's two different ways for a client to opt into a subscription. They can either click on a manual email. So if you just find some listings and email them some listings, that will opt them in. The other process is it will opt them in if you send them a subscription email. You actually save and search and set up a subscription, which we will do, and again, in the third hour of the class. If you don't do either of those things and they don't click on either of those emails, they're not opted in. So what happens is when I teach this class in person, normally, before COVID, this was a hands-on class and I would walk around the classroom and I would have everyone pull up the opt-in status report. And when they did it, one of the first things we would do would be go to pending. And what would happen is someone would go to the pending opt-in and they'd see a client that says pending. It's been like pending for like 60 days. And they say, are you telling me that this person has not received any Flexmls emails in 60 days? And the answer is yes. Unless your client is physically opting in, again, by either clicking on a manual email or clicking on the subscription email. And we will look at what that subscription email looks like in the third hour of the class. They are not receiving any subscription emails from Flexmls, which is the opt-in process. The reason Flexmls had to do this is because Flexmls sends millions of emails a day. And to get around spam filters and spam traps and stuff, like Google and Yahoo, and a lot of them started cracking down a couple of years ago. So Flexmls does the opt-in process, and it ensures like 99.9% accuracy on delivering emails, but it's a required thing on the internet these days. So what I tell people, and make sure, again, you wrote this down, opt-in status report, is I tell people, make sure you're checking this once a week. So it could be like a Thursday afternoon or a Friday morning. It only takes you a couple minutes. And basically what you do is you're just going to jump from tab to tab to see what information is there. So if I go to pending opt-in and I see, okay, Mace has been pending for 11 days. So the last class I taught for North Carolina Regional would have been that long ago. And so if I'm checking this once a week, he'd be stopped at 6 or 7 days top, but he's now been pending for almost 2 weeks, meaning I sent a subscription email to him that says, I want to connect. And there's a blue button that says, yes, please send me listings. If he doesn't click on that, he doesn't receive a subscription email. So if I'm checking this once a week, what I can do is I could resend the request. Or I might just want to reach out to them and say, hey, I was going to set you up with a subscription. Are you still interested? Now, the undeliverables, You normally will not see anything here because it tends to check your email addresses for incorrect, but obviously the email did not go to Stormtrooper TK421 because the Death Star blew up. So that's why the address doesn't exist. Now confirmed. This is what you want to see. This is where you want to see all your people, is in the confirmed section. And we see days until inactive 313. Now, if you add someone and they confirm today, that number is going to be 395, which is 13 months. And you'll notice here it doesn't say last click in subscription email. Normally this has a timestamp. If your client clicks on any subscription email, it has the timestamp, and this number resets. So every time they click on a link, they're going to be good for another 13 months. So it extends it. And then we're going to go to opted out. And so opted out. If you're checking this once a week, you may notice someone's been opted out. Now, you will receive an email if your client is opted out, but we're busy, you may miss it. So if you're checking this once a week and you notice someone's opted out, it will let you know right here. Now, clients tend to opt out when you send them up with a subscription that is ASAP, as soon as possible, and they have a really broad search. So they might be receiving 10 to 15 emails a day. Instead of telling you, hey, I'm receiving too many emails, they usually just opt out. And you can always switch that ASAP email to a daily email if you would like. And then inactive, this would be if someone has not clicked a link within 13 months. That means they're probably not your client. Okay. So that was the opt-in status report. And again, if I want to put in any menu items, the one I really like is the opt-in status. And I tell people always to check this once a week. And if you find it's something it's important, you can always add it up here, which is simple. Just go to your menu. Maybe I want to remove my complete, and I want to swap in the opt-in status report because I only have so much space that will fit up here. So the things that you use on a daily basis, put up here. Okay, so a couple other menu items I want to point out that are very important. Now, I told you before that you can put in an MLS number. Now, the thing about the MLS number is you can only put in one MLS number here. So if I do 1002-08615, that's one MLS number, but I put in 1002-08614, it doesn't know what I'm doing. So if you have multiple MLS numbers, what you're going to do is you're actually going to type in the word MLS, and you're looking for the MLS number search right here. So I'm going to click on that. Okay, so this is where I'm going to do my list of MLS numbers. So I'm going to put in 1002-08615. So let's imagine that my client has provided me a list of MLS numbers. They meet up with me, and they want me to pull up these properties. So I plug in those MLS numbers, and I'm going to click on search. Okay, so I know these are closed and withdrawn and they're different locations. That's fine, because I purposely want to have them kind of different because I want to show something that's really cool. Now, this will not work unless you select listings. Now we see it says selected 0. I've selected listings. I'm going to switch to the map tab. And what I'm looking for is driving directions. Now, these are spread out geographically, which is great. Because what I want to show you is when we go to driving directions, selected listings. Now, this 3 right here, this only works if they're selected. If you don't select them, then you would see the current listing option. We don't want the driving directions for one listing. We want it for all 3. So I'm going to click on View in Google Maps. And so it isn't able to find one of them, that's fine. So I do want to point out, we're just going to remove this one. Oh, looks like it doesn't find 2 of them. So it looks like, let's change this. I think that was because that was a slip. Okay, so we now have the two different properties, two different locations. Now, what's really cool about this is one, we can add a destination, which would mean actually it could be like your home office or your office. I'm just going to put in Rocky Mountain Association of Realtors, and then I'm going to move this up to the top. And so I can put in whatever order I want, and I have driving directions. Now, the great thing about this is send directions to your phone. If you click on this, you can send it by email. That's my email, or it would go to my phone by text. And so when you get driving directions, you can send them to yourself, and then you could forward that on to your clients if you'd like, if they're following in a separate car. So let's do that one more time. So I do MLS number search. And I'm going to plug in those numbers. And so again, we have 3 numbers or 4 numbers. Let's try a couple different numbers this time. Click on search. And then again, key thing is check the box, because look what happens when I just go to map and I click on driving directions. It just does the current listing. That's why the key thing is to select, to make sure you've selected 3, 4, 5, or whatever you want. Go to map, driving directions, selected listings, and click on view in Google Maps. Give it a second to load. So now this time it actually has found all 3 properties. The reason before is there was like a unit number and the address. And so sometimes if you just remove that unit number or like boat slip number, it'll find it. And then again, we can add a destination. So we'll put in, I'm going to put in Rocky Mountain Association, but obviously you could put in your home or your work office, put that up at the top. And then we have send the directions to your phone. So I find this is a really cool thing to explain, is the MLS number searching in the context of driving directions. Now, you can get driving directions for any listings that you've done in a search. It doesn't have to be just MLS numbers. It could be anything that you'd like, though. Okay, so the next thing I want to point out is, remember how we were doing address searching? So if I were to type in like 3201 Greystone Drive, now it's already found it because I put in an address. This is great. This is great to plug in if you have an actual address. But let's say, for example, your client calls you up and says, hey, I'm interested in that blue house in Rocky Mountain. Well, we don't have a field that says blue house in Rocky Mountain, but one thing you can do is you can type in the word address, because there is an address search if you need to do a bit of detective work. So what I mean by that is, okay, you ask the person, okay, do you happen to know where it's located? And so they say, I think it's on the 200 block. So I'm gonna type in 200 to 299. And you say, well, what was the street? And says, I think it was Oak something. Well, what's nice about this street name is contains. So you see this down arrow or chevron. If you click on that, you see there's other options. But if I were to type in contains an oak, it'll show me anytime oak is in the street name. So Smiling Oak, Oak Leaf, Oakwood, whatever it is you want to plug in. And if you scroll down, pay close attention to this. There is a show more option. And again, whenever you see that down arrow or chevron throughout the system, it means more options. Going to show more. I can put in the status of active. If I want to see, hey, is there anything on the 200 block of Oak that is currently active? And you click on search. And this, if this came back with some results, what you could do is you could go to the detail tab and look at the photos and say, hey, are any of these? Oh, here's the blue house. And so you say, hey, or this is the blue house. Say, is this the one? Like, yeah, that's the one. And then you could go from there. So like I said before, if you have an actual address, like 229 Oak Island Road. That's great and wonderful. But if you need to do some specific stuff, put in the address, search for specific detective work. And so we do the 200 to 299, put in Oak. Now, another cool way you can do this is, let's say you have a client who wants to list their condo, and so they're in a condo complex, and you want to see all the solds for all the units in like the last 6 months or last year. That's real simple. So I used to live in a place called 55 Sea Park when I was in Florida. So I could put in 55 Sea Park. Now I won't specify a unit because I want to see all the sold at that building. So I'm going to go down to show more. I can go to status of closed. And then I can give a date range. If I want to go back, say, for 2020, I want to go back 6 months. And then I can do a search, and it would show me all the closed units at this address in the last 6 months or the last year. Or let's imagine that there's 3 buildings, so 55 to 59. So 55, 57, and 59. If I want to see all, there could be, 60 units, and there might end up being like 3 or 4 closed. So if I need to do a CMA, real simple, it makes sense to look at the units that have closed in the specific condo complex that I'm looking at. Okay, so we're at the last 5 minutes for the review. So what were we doing? Oh, we have a question. Okay, Catherine asked, explain how to search for sales of mobile home parks. I might have to get back to you on that one, Catherine. I'll take a look during, like, at the end of the class and see. I'm not quite sure how your setup is. The thing is Flexmls is specific to every single board. So how mobile home parks work, usually I can just plug it in and try to figure it out, but that might take a little bit more time. Otherwise, I might have to reach out to Terry and then get an answer from her. But I'll look during the breaks to see if we can find something. Okay. But I'll just look real quickly, because mobile homes would be, you have a residential and you have a subtype of manufactured home. So if you're looking at like a list or the detail tab, there's often going to be like subdivisions or something that would mention this. Again, I'll dig into this more, see if we can find more information on that. So let's just sum up. So first thing we did is we can type in an MLS number. So put in 1002-08615. Pull up an MLS number in the same tab or open this up into new tab. That was number 1. The second thing we did is we typed in an address. So I'm going to put in, clear this out, 2575 Slocum. And a lot of times it'll already find what you're looking for before you even finish this syntax. So we can type in an address. Now the address again has to be an actual address of a listing. If I type in 2574, no guarantee it'll come back, because there may be a listing there, or it might be a property there, correction, but it's never been listed in the MLS. Now the third thing that we do is we're going to put in a radius. So there's 3 different ways to do a radius search. 1 mile from, and put in an MLS number 1002-08615. And the key thing after doing a radius is make sure you're looking at the map to verify, either on the map tab or on the edit search tab, that it is in the correct location. So that was a radius around a MLS number, or we do 2 miles from and an address. Again, I was checking the map. And then the third thing that we do is we do a location. So this is going to be some sort of landmark. So 2 miles from, and I did Nash Day Hospital, Rocky Mount NC. Now, the reason I'm putting the city and then the state abbreviation is, again, if you type in something and you're not absolutely positive it's unique, Google may not be able to figure it out. So if you put in the name of it and then the city and then the state abbreviation, it knows exactly where it's located. And this is especially important for something like a Walmart or a Trader Joe's or something, because it's going to be in multiple cities and Google's not necessarily going to know where that is. So if you put in the name of your location, city, and then the state abbreviation, it should find it. Now, like I did with the previous two examples, always check the map to make sure it's mapped correctly. But the context of this is you have a client who is getting a job somewhere at a location and they want to live within a mile or 2 miles from that location. It's very simple to do a radius around that. Then we typed in a name like Luke. So this could be a name of anything in the system like a search or a CMA or a contact, but it can also find other members. Then what we did is we did some actual searching. So my examples were land, 100 to 120K. I pulled that up and checking your notes right now, you should have these exact words written down for your syntax. So you can just swap them out with what works for you so you know how it works. Land 100, 120K. We did closed within the last 3 months. And we did 1 to 1.2 M for millions, K is for thousands. And then finally, we got fancy and we did active 100 to 150K, 3 to 4 bed, 2 bath, 1500 to 1800 SQFT. And then I'm going to do city of Rocky Mount. And then I talked about menu items. So menu items up here would be things like putting in the hot sheet, or putting in a saved search, anything that is named something in the menu here. If you plug it in up at that, you can pull it up. So I just find it's a lot quicker. But the menu items I had you write down was the OPT for the opt-in status report, and then the address search and the MLS number search. The MLS number search meaning for multiple MLS numbers, which we used for doing driving directions. And then the address was if you need to do some detective work, you're not quite sure where something's located, you can do a range of house numbers, that kind of thing. Okay, we're going to take another 10-minute break, and then we will start up again at the top of the hour. Okay, so for the third hour of the class, what we're going to do is we're basically going to be doing a search specific for a client. And then we're going to cover all the different aspects of that, like the quick search, map searching, subscriptions, that kind of thing. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do a search for a client. And one of the easiest ways to do that is start with a quick search. Now, you could put in information up here in the quick launch like we did in the second hour, personal preference. But I like to go through the quick search start to finish just so people are aware of how it works. So we're going to click on quick search. Okay, and so what I'm going to do is I'm going to go through stuff on the left side, kind of like tab by tab, point out some important things to you. But before I do that, I do want to point out, you see where this residential, this down arrow chevron, again, when we see that throughout the system, it means more options. If you wanted to switch to a different property type. And I do want to point out the difference between the 1- residential and 1.5 my quick search. Now, I won't go through that full process in this class. We will do that in the 201 class on Tuesday. But basically what you can do is you can remove fields that you're not interested in. And then you could add fields that you are interested in. And if you always want these fields to be there, you go up to save and save quick search template, and you can create your own quick search template with the fields that you want to see. So we'll actually go through that process in the 201 class, but I just want you to be aware of that is an option. And that's why when you see with mine, I have one called 1.5 my quick search because I specifically saved that. You are just provided the defaults, the residential, the land, the multifamily, but you can customize all those as much as you'd like. Okay, so we're just going to stick with residential. And so we have 6,776 results because this is everything in North Carolina regional. So I'm just going to make a couple of changes. Now, first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to click on the bold word of status. And when I do that, I see active is selected and pending with showings. If I want to select multiple options here, whenever I see a list like this, just hold down Control, or if I have a Mac command, I can click or unclick something. Now, if I just click it without holding down Control command, it just selects the one option. And let me zoom in just a little bit. Now, I do want to point out, okay, so we see a sold date and it says 10/19/2019. So it's going to go back 1 year. I can change this to 1/1/2020. So now the number will jump up, change to 25,000. And it's going to go 10 years into the future, basically meaning this search is going to be current for the next 10 years. So when you have that really piggy client. Now, I mentioned it before about hover text and mouse behavior, but that is incredibly important, especially when you're doing search. And I'll show you what I mean. So I see my mouse cursor as the arrow. So that's your default. Well, when I'm hovering over stuff, okay, so it gives me the index finger. We know that means to edit. So if I click on that, that drops it down. But another thing is when I'm hovering, watch what happens when I hover over the two black arrows. It says change date type. I would have no idea that this was an option unless I was reading that hover text. So what it's going to allow me to do is do a absolute date range, 1/1/2020 to the present, to a relative date range. So maybe I want to go back 3 days. And whenever you see the blue links, that means it's going to be the index finger, or you can do something with it. So I can change it from 3 days to 3 months or to 3 years. And if I want to go back to days, just click on years again. So again, we have a relative date range and we have an absolute date range. So you would not be aware of this if you're not reading that hover text. That's just something I want to point out. Keep going down. Now, the same thing, hover text is important for something like subtype. Well, look what happens when I click on manufactured home. Drops down to 1,026. Now, I would not realize that there's other options I can do here. Now, if I hover over the of, it says click to change, include, exclude. So if I want all property types but not manufactured home, just change that to not of. And I'm actually just going to switch back to active just to keep our results current. And I want to check status or subtype. So we're just going to keep going down and look at a few other things. Now, bedrooms, I could put like say 3 to 4. As I'm going to do 2. Now, you do have the option for city, marketing city, and I can always, I think I actually removed the subdivision field, so I'll just add it back real quickly. Once you remove something, it's very quick to add it back. Okay, there's my subdivision field. I'm just going to collapse these. So you can search on a city, marketing city, county, or subdivision if you'd like. What I'm going to do instead is I'm actually going to use the map shapes, but I want you to be aware there's a couple different ways to search for locations. An actual search parameter, like a city. Put in the city of, say, Nashville, or a city of Rocky Mountain. You can do multiple cities right here if you'd like. So you can use this, or you can use map shapes, which we will do in a little bit. But I want you to be aware that there are 2 different ways to do it. Now, one thing that can be really cool is, and hold on, we have a question. Jennifer asks, what's the difference between city and marketing city? I'm not, here, let's actually add a listing and see if it specifies it. There's usually help text on every field. I think it might have to do with like, people will call something in a certain city when it's actually in a neighboring area, but it's called the marketing city. Let's see if we find an address. Okay, okay, so the city is looks like the physical address, but it might be referred to something else. I'm not positive. That's something you wouldn't want to ask your broker. I'm not, every board has different rules, but usually that's what a marketing city is like if it's kind of in the outskirts, but people refer to something else, even though geographically the mail-in box says it's in a different city. But oftentimes they'll be the same thing. Okay, so we can do city or county, whatever we want to do. Now, I'm going to do a few other things. So one cool thing is I'm going to zoom in to Rocky Mount. And I'm going to draw a circle. Right in the middle of Rocky Mount, and I'm going to go up. So you can combine location fields. So I've drawn a circle, but let me switch to the list tab real quick, and I want to point out something that's kind of cool. Let me switch to a residential. These views, the stuff that we see in the list tab, this is something also we will be covering in the 201 class. Okay, so let's say that I want everything in the shape, but I do not want stuff in the subdivision of Englewood. What I mean by that is I've drawn a map shape. Now this could be around a elementary school, hospital, or whatever I want, but I don't want any listings in the subdivision of Englewood. For hypothetical reasons, let's say that the subdivision of Englewood has really, really high HOA fees. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put in the subdivision of Englewood, and I'm going to change this subdivision to not of. So if I want to avoid certain subdivisions, but I still want everything in that shape, we're basically combining search parameters at the same time. So that is an option. And I'm just going to get rid of the shape and the subdivision. I want to keep my numbers high. So I'm just going to put in a few other search parameters. Let's do a price of, say, 150 to 250. Scroll down, and then something like appliances. Now, pay close attention to what I'm going to do. When I click on appliances, everything says or. So if I check the box next to washer, and it says 813 drops down to 123, and I check the box next to dryer, watch what happens to the number. 123 jumps up to 124. So almost every house that has a washer also has a dryer. But what this means is it can have either a washer or a dryer. That really doesn't make a lot of sense. Probably what you're going to want to do, and again, read your hover text. Click to change and or not. I'm going to change this to and. It has to have a washer and a dryer. Now the ors would make more sense for the cooktop. It can have an electric cooktop or a gas cooktop. So that 18 jumps up to 23. So your client's not really particular on the cooktop, but it has to have a washer and a dryer. But it cannot have a dishwasher. So maybe they like to do wash dishes by hand, so it cannot have a dishwasher. So we have multiple things going on right here. It has to have a washer and a dryer. It can have a cooktop or a gas or electric cooktop, but it cannot have a dishwasher. So I want you to make sure that you're aware of these different operators. But again, whenever you see this blue text that's underlined, it's going to give you functionality. So that's one way you can do this. Okay, and if you need to add any of the fields, like I showed you before, click inside this box, add a field to the search. If I want to add something like, say, central air, I can add central when it just adds central over, or if I click on the cooling system, it adds the entire group over. And here we have some nice help text that says, click to add all fields in this group. And so now it's add everything for the cooling system. So if I wanted central air, check the box. This would be everything with central air. But if it can have central or a wall unit, either's fine. Watch 6, jump up to, okay, that's actually the same number. But that's, remember how your operators work, or, not, or, and. So what I'm going to do now is I'm actually going to clear these out just so we have some high numbers. Let's get back to 813. Okay. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to zoom into the area of Rocky Mount. Okay, so I've zoomed in the area, and I want to point out the 3 different shapes we're going to be working with next. We're going to be working with the rectangle, the circle, and the freeform polygon. So watch what I do. Now the rectangle, I click on the rectangle, and then when I click again, so I click on it, I start moving my mouse, and then I click again. And once I'm done with my shape, I stop moving my mouse and I click. So click once to start, move your mouse, click again to finish. So now we're down to 8 results. So let's imagine that this is the husband search, but the wife, she works right here and she wants to live within a certain distance of her work. So the circle is a radius and it actually tells you how far. So we're going to go out, say 3 miles. Be exact as we want. We've got 3.01 miles. So we have his search. So that 8's can now jump up to 12, and then her search. So we have 2 different shapes, and I can keep drawing as many shapes as I'd like. So what's really cool about shapes is it's everything within these 2 shapes. That's why the number's gone up. This is one of those things that if you're not reading the hover text, and Flexmls was actually starting to add more help to these different buttons, but if you hover over the within, it says all shape locations are included. Click to intersect. So I'm going to click on this and change this to intersection. And so what it's going to do is it's going to show us the intersection of these 2 different shapes. And there's one property in common. I'm just zooming out. One property in common between the 2 shapes. So like a Venn diagram. Now another thing you can do is shape intersection. You can click on it again and it says it's all shape locations must be matched. Click to exclude. So now what it's going to do is it's going to show you all the listings that are outside these 2 different shapes. So what's great about doing the not within, and especially for the next shape that we're going to draw, the freeform polygon right here, is if you do not have a search parameter specifically for what you're looking for, you can draw a shape to have everything inside it or outside of it. As Catherine was asking, let's say if you happen to know the location of a mobile home park, you may not have a specific search parameter for that on the left side, which I couldn't find one. But if you were to draw, what you could do is you could have a map shape called mobile home parks. That's the map overlay, the overlying name, and then you could have individual map shapes for the different mobile home parks. Or it could be gated communities or golf course communities or waterfront properties. So that's what we're going to do next. We're going to zoom in after I've gotten rid of these 2 shapes by clicking on the X just to the left of them. We're going to zoom in back to Rocky Mount. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to draw a shape right along here. I'm going to get pretty specific, and I'll show you what I mean, why I mean by specific. So I'm going to click on this freeform polygon, and every time I click, it gives me a point. So I'm going to be pretty exact. And so when I'm done, I'm going to stop moving my mouse. People will call Flexmls support, say, well, why is it following me? You need to stop moving your mouse and double click. And once you've double clicked, you've finished your shape. And so the polygon is right here. Now, like I said before, I want you to think of what this actually is. Now, would this be a gated community, golf course community? I'm just going to call this West Rocky Mount. And I'm going to put it into an overlay that I'm going to name hotspots. Now, let's imagine, this is completely hypothetical, but there's certain neighborhoods where I was at the Rocky Mount, the brewery at the Mills. Maybe there's certain neighborhoods that are starting to become hip. There's like dog parks, breweries, pedestrian traffic or something. And you have a client who wants to live in the hip area or a hotspot or whatever. Now, there's not going to be any search parameter called hotspot in the left side. So, but if you know what things are, and you can create your own. So again, this could be for gated communities, golf course communities, whatever one. I'm just going to call this one West Rocky Mount, completely making it up, but I just want you to see how this works. So I'm going to click on the polygon right here. And then I'm going to click on edit. And don't worry, we'll do this one more time. I'm just going to call this one West one more time. West Rocky Mount, give it a color, and I'm going to save it to a map overlay. Now you have a new overlay, so this is something new, like this is going to be your gated communities one or your mobile home parks, whatever. You can put that in. I'm going to add existing overlays, and I created ones in previous classes called hotspots in my neighborhoods. I'm just going to call this one hotspot. There we go. So I've created a shape called West Rocky Mount that's under hotspots. And now, whether or not this is going to be a thing again, but what I always used to do is I always used to create shapes called Airbnb locations. So it'd be central locations where you have clients that are looking to buy up residential properties to list them as income. So what I mean by that is, okay, well, I'm gonna get rid of this shape. Let's draw one. We'll zoom back in. And so what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna draw a shape right here and say like there's some decent priced housing here and you have a client that's looking to buy property for rental income. So I've finished my shape. Again, if I want to save this in the future, once you've drawn a shape, you can just do it the one time. But if you want to use it in the future, just click on it, go to edit, and I'm going to call this one Northwest Harborough. Oh, try that one more time. Northwest Harborough. Give it a color. I'm going to save it to a map overlay, and I'm going to create actually a new overlay. And this one I'm going to call rental incomes. And so what I've done is I've created two different shapes, but they're actually part of two different map overlays. And if you ever want to pull up shapes in the future, it's really simple. It's going to be right inside this box that says MLS number, address, or map overlay. So I'm going to click inside this box. And so we see all my hotspots that I've done in previous classes. Then we see my neighborhoods, and then I see the rental income. So if I ever want to pull any of these up, like rental incomes, double click. Give it a second to load, and it will zoom into that location. Or maybe instead, I want my West Rocky Mount. I'm actually going to get rid of the Northwest Harborough. So now I have 7 results. And so let's say this is, again, I have a first-time home buyer. This is a happening area of town, and they want to buy a property here. So the key point to remember with the map shapes is, what is the term? What is the overarching name? Is it, is it a golf course community? Is it waterfront? Is it a gated community? Is it hotspots, Airbnb locations, whatever it is? And then you're going to have individual shapes. And like I saw with the hotspots, I now have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 different hotspots, like hip areas around the area that people can purchase homes. Again, this is an arbitrary thing that I've created. And the reason you're doing this is if you don't have a certain type of field you can search on the left side, you can create map shapes to create your own field. Now, in the context of the stats, remember our market stats, and I talked about it only allows you to do one thing. If you need to have something that selects multiple locations, like multiple subdivisions, just draw it. And you could combine 2 or 3 subdivisions. Let's say they're all very similar price, similar types of housing, and then just call it whatever it is. And then you would save that and pull that up in the future. Now, before we save the search or go any further, what we want to do is actually look at the results. So that's what I'm going to do now, is I'm going to go to the list tab. Okay. So I'm going to look at the list tab, and now I have the normal view, and then I have the one-line view, just personal preference how I want to look at this. And this list view, what the columns that you see here, it's dependent on whatever you have here. 1- residential, the asterisk means it's been inherited. And you go down, there's other ones. Now I have one called default view and sold my residential view. We're going to, on the 201 class on Thursday, we're actually going to create our own view and then decide what columns we want to see here. But I just want to point out that is an option. just not going to cover it today in class. Now the detail tab. Detail tab will have information about the listing, and I'm going to go to listing with that's not new construction. And so you go to report. You can see there's different reports if you'd like. Otherwise, the important things here is, one, this report is private information, meaning it has the other realtor's name, it has commission rates, that kind of thing. If I switch to public, you'll notice less information because it's just showing the public information, and then it also sees your branding. So this is the kind of thing that gets sent to your clients. Then we have history. If you want to see every time a property has been listed, let's try another property. So here we go. Okay, this one has been listed twice, and if you click on the plus signs, you can actually have a breakdown. Okay, and then real tax information. If you want to, this is your tax provider. If you want to get tax specific on the parcel, you'll do so here. But this will bring you to real estate, and you could launch realist and get other things. But you do have the tax info, and there's also neighborhood profile. So if you do neighborhood profile, what it does is going to do a profile on that specific zip code. So it gives you like some demographic information and basic information about that specific neighborhood. But again, it should be using the zip code. So can have some rather interesting information here. And then we have showing time. So if you want to schedule a showing, you can do so, do a specific showing. But if you select multiple properties, there is going to be an option under the three dots called showing cart, which allows you to send all 3 or all 4 listings to showing time to schedule them at the same time if you would like. And then also you have loop it. So your third-party vendors are all going to be on this detail tab. Property map is another thing from Realist. RPR, if you want to pull up the RPR record for that property, you have to have an RPR account. As a realtor member of NAR, you automatically have one. You just have to sign up for it. But I highly recommend using RPR. Now, RPR is great for here, but with RPR, every board has a data share with RPR. So if you have a client who's leaving Ohio and wants to move to North Carolina, your area, and you want to see what their house looks like and what, everything they have, RPR does give you access to listings all across the US. So you can either do it this way, or remember our menu items. You type in RPR, but let me change that, type in RPR, and you can pull up RPR this way. So now we go to the Photos tab. Now on the Photos tab, we'll see all the photos, and left and right on your keyboard, we'll go through the photos, up and down. We'll go to the next listing. Now, like I said before, your photos can be up to 3,000 by 2,000 resolution. If it's more than 3,000 by 2,000 resolution, it's actually going to save it proportionally down to less than 3,000 by 2,000 resolution. But your photos can be up to 15 megabytes. So I highly recommend uploading as high quality photos as you can, because once you've uploaded it to Flexmls, it generates 4 different versions of the photo file depending on where it's going to show. So don't worry about it like slowing down someone's computer. You really do want the highest quality photos that you can. And just to show you what 3,000 by 2,000 resolution looks like as a wallpaper. Let's get one of a house. Okay, so this is a house. Okay, it looks like it's there we go. So this is, I'm zoomed in. This is what 3,000 by 2,000 resolution looks like. So it's very high quality, and this is what you want to have for your photos, is very high quality, because your photos are going to look really awesome, especially when we're dealing with like high retina display, like iPads, stuff like that. You want to make sure you have really high quality photos. So again, 3,000 by 2,000 resolution, up to 15 megabytes per photo. And if you have any virtual tours or videos on your listing, or if someone else does, you'll see that there. There's going to be a section. Yeah, just go through the photos. So purposes of what we're doing right now is we're looking at these listings before we send them off to our client. I do want to switch to the map tab to point out a few other things that are really cool. Is if you zoom in to a property, if you click on it, like this one on Ridgecrest, you do see that there's a street view and a bird's eye. So if I click on street view and the Google car has gone by the property, you can actually see what the neighborhood looks like. You can go down the street, see if there's a Chick-fil-A. Or you can go to bird's eye. If you want to see satellite imagery of the property, there's bird's eye imagery as well. And so this right now tells me, okay, there's some trash there. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're actually going to save this search and continue with the subscription, but I really want to break down what a manual email is versus a search versus a portal, because we're going to cover that now, and then the portal will actually come up in the 201 class. So what I mean is we have 6 listings, and what I can do is I can go to email, and I'm going to do the interactive version, and we'll do all results, not current listing, and I can find a contact name like R2D2 or Red Leader. Just do Red Leader, and then I could fill in whatever I want and email him some listings. So this is the most common way, or at least it was like 5 years ago when people were using Flexmls, is you email your client some listings. Now, I like to think of dealing with your client, there's like tiers of support. And so tier 1 is a manual email. So you search some listings and you email your client those listings. Now, this is great and wonderful, but when you're doing manual emails, you're doing all the work. And so I've emailed my client these 6 listings. Well, tomorrow I'm gonna have to do the same search again and again and again. So it's requiring more work for me. So if you just meet someone and you want to fire off some listings to them, that's fine. But I highly recommend what you do is you go to a save, search, and subscription, which is like the tier 2 support of your client. This is where the Flexmls is doing the work. So what you're doing when you save a search and subscription is you go up to save, you save a search, and so put in a name. So personally, what I like to do is I like to put in the name of my client and then something describing the search. So we say 150 plus amount. So again, put in the name of my client and then something describing the search. Now, search description. This is not a description of your client. When I was working at Flexmls, someone had put not really worth the commission in this box, and they called up the support team panicking because they did not realize their client could actually see that. So I just want to give you a warning. Search description does show up to your client. Now, contact, none, new, or existing. What I always like to do is go to existing first and see if my client is already there. Okay, OB1's already there. So actually what we're gonna do is we're gonna switch our clients to Jack Porkins because I wanna make sure I'm doing this for a new client. I'm running out of Star Wars characters, clearly. Do Jack Porkins. And then we'll do a new contact. Now the reason we're doing a new contact is because this is often how you will be doing searches. You do a search and you put in your contact at the same time. So I'm gonna put JackiePorky@mailinator.com. Now, you'll notice that it says create a portal account for this prospect. And there's actually an I right here that says the Flexmls portal is a personalized Flexmls website that you can use to communicate and collaborate with your clients. Your clients can use the Flexmls portal to review the results of listing searches you have saved for them. Each contact's portal is customized for them and also contains your branding and contact information. So basically what the portal is telling you is it's a website your client can log into that's branded to you. They're going to do searching, save listings, hide listings. Now, this portal, this is what I call the tier 3 of support. Now, what's great about the portal is your client can log in at any point to look for listings. What do I mean by that? Is if your client logs into the portal at 1 o'clock in the morning because they can't sleep, they can search for listings. Now, we're saving a search and subscription, which we are going to do, but I'm also going to invite my client to the portal at the same time. I personally like to combine the search and subscription with the portal. You can do one or the other, and you can even invite people to the portal just by themselves. And we'll cover that. We'll cover that in the 201 class. What I mean by that is, let's say you're at Costco and you have your realtor name badge, and someone comes up to you, says, "Oh, your realtor here. We're on vacation. We love it. We want to buy a property, but like we're in a hurry." So if you only have like a minute or so or 2 minutes, what you can do is you can invite them to the portal. The portal, again, is that website that's branded to you. They see all the listings. They're going to be doing searching anyways on other sites. Now, the reason to use the Flexmls portal, number one, it is live, up-to-date information. As you probably experienced working with Zillow, Zillow could be a couple hours behind or a couple days behind. When I was an MLS director last year, I got daily calls or emails from our realtors saying, "Hey, I updated this in FlexMLS. It's still not reflecting it in Zillow. Can you do something?" So then I would have an email that was specific to MLS staff. I'd email Zillow and say, "Hey, can you fix this?" And it usually got resolved in a couple of days, but that could be 2, 3 days behind on accurate listings in Zillow. So in FlexMLS, new listings are up or hit the MLS in 10 minutes. And what that means for a subscription is a email will fire off to your client in about 10 minutes. For price changes or status changes, that's going to be 2 to 5 minutes. So if you have a search and subscription, it's important to have it if you want to make sure your client's up to date on stuff. So that's the number one reason to use the Flexmls portal, live, up to date information. Now, the second reason it's important is you can track what they're looking at. What I mean by that is if your client's doing their searching in Redfin or Zillow, you're not really sure on what their search parameters are or what they like or what they don't like. But if they search inside of FlexMLS, it's actually going to track all that. And that's what we will be looking at on Thursdays. We're going to play around in the portal, and then we're going to look at the data that gets generated that you would see that your client's playing around with it. So for this, I'm going to save a search and subscription, and then I'm also going to invite to the portal, and I'll go through the same process again in the 201 to make sure we understand it. So I'm going to save that subscription because I just want to point out what those emails look like. The easiest way for you to understand searches and subscriptions and like portals is email yourself listings or set yourself up with a portal, not your work email, because you don't want to confuse FlexMLS, but use like a personal email. Now, a few things I want to point out for the subscription is it says send notification of new listings to. I have you sender unchecked. Yours is probably checked. I don't need to get copies of my subscription emails. One thing we'll talk about in the 201 class is in contact management, a lot of this information is now already tracked, so you don't need to see copies of emails because it's just going to tell you the last time they clicked on it. So I'm going to uncheck that. Now enable preview mode. We click on the question mark or hover, it says preview mode allows you to approve listings before they are emailed to clients. 99% of the time, you're not going to do this. But if you have a really picky client, basically what preview mode does is it emails you the listings first. Then you have to prove which ones to send on. And so it requires you to do something. So a lot of times people will put on preview mode, not sure what it is. And it's kind of like the opt-in status report. If you don't do anything, the emails go nowhere. Now, schedule. Every day is checked by default, meaning once a day, every day, an email will go out to your client, assuming there are listings that meet the search parameters. Now, our search has 6 results. This is a pretty narrow search. So there's probably going to be a new listing or a price change or a status change, maybe once a week, maybe twice a week, if that. So they're only going to get an email the day where that event happens. Whereas ASAP, this is what it sounds like. If a MLS number gets added, so a listing gets added to the MLS, they're going to get an email in about 10 minutes. Price changes and status changes will be about 2 to 5 minutes. Now, this is great and wonderful in a really hot market right now, or if you have a very narrow search. But if you have a first-time home buyer that insists on looking at everything in Rocky Mounts, and you have this on, they may be receiving 10 to 15 emails a day. And that's where we talked about the opt-out. That's where they're probably going to opt out because they're receiving too many emails. But the one thing I do like is monthly, specifically after they purchased a house. Now, people, what they like to do is after clients purchase, they just like purge them from the system. Don't do that. Even keep the search with them, but switch the subscription to monthly and do them once a month, and then just change up your message. And so a lot of times what clients like to do is they like to see what's going on in their neighborhood. And if you're just sending an email once a month, that's just to say, hey, this is what's going on in your neighborhood. It's a reminder so they remember who you are, because research has shown something like 80% of people would recommend their realtor to a friend or family member, but I think only something like 20% actually remember their name. So if you're just emailing them once a month, this is what's going on in your subdivision, they're likely to remember who you are. And that's really simple. If you wanted to like pull up your subscriptions, we'll open this up in a new tab. You'll see all the subscriptions you have. Like Mace, I could just go into the subscription and I could switch Mace from a ASAP to, so he purchased something, I'm going to switch him to a monthly, and then I'll update the text. That's something that's really simple. So again, I just typed in subscriptions if I want to see all my subscriptions, and I'll pull them up in a new tab. Now, the first time you do this, this is going to be blank for you. So this is what I did is I put in some text. So hi, space, comma, here are some listings for you. Know you are interested. And I'm just going to put something in the subject. Now, what I like to do is put in a basic subject in paragraph here, and then I'm going to save it as a new template. So I'm just going to sub to, and I'll make it default just to show you. You can have multiple, whatever you want. And so once I save it, so when I come in to enter a client, I just put in the name of my client. And so it saves myself some time. So the next time I do a subscription, all I need to do is plug in the name of that client. And so when I save this, this is going to save the search and subscription. Now, what it does is it gives you a pop-up that says search and subscription saved. Would you like to email these listings now? Send listings to email. What this means is a lot of people don't realize when you save a search and subscription, it doesn't email the original 6 results. It only sends out future. So what people used to do is they used to manually email first, then save a search and subscription. But because I invited the client to the portal, I'm not going to email these out, because once they log into the portal, they will see these 6 and then any new ones that come. And we'll talk about that more in the 201 class. But what I want to do now is I want to pull up Mailinator and just show you what these emails look like. And so I sent the emails to Jackie Porky. Okay, so there's 2 emails that went out to Jack Porkins. The first one says, welcome to your portal. This is the portal invitation email. You click on this, and then this is how they can sign up. And it gives you great information. We'll talk about this much more in depth in the 201. I just want you to be aware of the process. We're slowly building up. Remember, you have 3 tiers of support. Tier 1 is the manual email. You are doing all the work. Tier 2 is the search and subscription. Flexmls is doing the work, and that really should be your minimum. Tier 3 is the portal. The portal is a website your client can log into, tell you what they like, what they don't like. It is branded to you. That's the Tier 3 of support. They are doing all the work, meaning they can log into the portal. It's proactive, whereas subscription is reactive. There's a new listing. Okay, after 10 minutes, it goes out. Whereas your client can log into the portal at any point, and when they log in, they can do the searching on their own. So that is what the portal email looks like. So Chewy has invited you to sign up. Now the subscription email says new listing updates from Chewy. This is the subscription email, and this is the blue button I mentioned. Yes, please send me listings. If your client physically clicks on a manual email or clicks on this, and we'll open that up into a new tab, then they're opted into the subscription. So this subscription is going to be good for 13 months. If my client clicks on any of those emails, it's going to extend it for 13 months. So I just want to make sure that you are aware of the 2 different types. This is the portal email, and this is the subscription email. So I'm going to return back to Flexmls. So after I've added a client, what I like to do is go into contact management and just verify that the client has been set up. So I go look for Jack Porkins. I see his portal's turned on. and I see that his subscription, his status is confirmed. I just clicked on that email as Jack to opt in. And so he's going to be good for 13 months. And then in the 201 class, we'll go more through all of these different things. Do we have any questions? I'm just going to spend a couple minutes reviewing, and then we should be good. There's just been very few questions today, so we're going to go a little short. So in the third hour, we mostly talked about the quick search. So we talked about putting in fields on the left side. One cool thing is for something like status of closed, you have the two black arrows. So read your hover text. We have a absolute date range and we have a relative date range. And then we know we can do things like subtype of manufactured home, do not of. If we're looking for a specific field, we can click inside this box and start typing it in, appliances or exterior features. Now, if I always want these to be here, I can go up to save quick search template and create my own quick search template, which I already have one called 1.5 my quick search. We'll actually go through this process in the 201 class. Then when I have some actual results, I can do some maps searching with the map shapes. So the rectangle, the circle, which is basically a radius, and the freeform polygon. Now the great thing about the freeform polygon is whenever I've drawn a shape, I can just use it one time. I'm gonna scroll up on the left side. Or if I click on it, I can edit it and save this for the future. So when you're dealing with freeform polygons, I want you to think of them geographically or thematically. What are they? Are they gated communities, golf course communities, waterfront properties, whatever it is? That's the name of the map overlay. But the individual shapes will have different names. And we can tell that by going to MLS number, address this box, and we see all the different shapes that I've drawn. So hotspots has 5 different shapes, where my neighborhoods and rental incomes just have 1. Then we went through the different tabs like the list. In the 201 class, we will learn how to customize this view right here, this list. And then the detail tab, we want to see any of the third-party integrations. The photos, your photos can be up to 3000 by 2000 resolution. If it's larger than 3000 by 2000, it'll shrink it down proportionally. Then we went to the map tab. I do want to point out, if you click on any property, you can get a street view or bird's eye view. And then we talked about the 3 tiers of support. The manual email is the tier 1. You are doing all the work and you have to keep doing that search. Tier 2 is a search and subscription. That is where Flex is doing the work. So you set up a search and a subscription. They're going to get new listings in about 10 minutes. Price changes and status changes in about 2 to 5 minutes. And that tier 3 is the portal, which is a website they can log into, tell you what they like, what they don't like. So that's going to be like the first thing that we cover in the 201 class on Thursday. Okay, so seeing that we just really have had very few questions, I'm going to end this now. Are there any questions before I stop? Okay, I'm going to stop recording.